So we are on day 3 of my hyperthyroidism and beyond. So now we're going to talk about when I had gone through the radioactive iodine and it basically destroyed my thyroid and made it hypothyroidism, which is a slow thyroid, which is not emitting enough of the thyroid stimulating hormone, which basically the radioactive iodine destroyed my thyroid. So it took a couple of months after to get it regulated. But once it was regulated, now remember, this was like 20 something years ago. Once this was all regulated, everything was cool. I was, things were fine. I was on a steady dose of medication. They were checking me every 6 months, every year. And then, I went through pregnancies, 2 pregnancies and everything. Now, they say that it's hard to get pregnant when you have hypothyroid. That wasn't the case for me. There were also things that I learned along the way when I was pregnant with my third, that hypothyroidism can cause complications in pregnancy, which I was unaware of. So I'm still learning. So fast forward to about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago. So remember in the first episode when I said, make sure that you are seeing an endocrinologist. Do not have your family general practitioner regulate your thyroid. Okay, so here's why. So at that point, everything was under control. My thyroid had been no issues, nothing. And so I trusted the general practitioner to just, take the levels. If everything was fine, would stay on the same dose of medication, which I was okay with. But then there was a few days there where I missed my medication. Didn't really think anything of it, went for my labs, and they came back off. So they raised my medication. Okay, I was fine. So at that point, now here, don't ever think this. Don't ever think that if you have an underactive thyroid and they up your medication, that it will help you lose weight. Not the case. Don't ever think that. I've talked to people that are like, well, my doctor said I'm like this close to being underactive, and I can't wait till I get underactive because then I'll take medication and I will lose weight. BS. That is not the truth. Here's what happens when you don't take your medication right, or you get dosed and don't need that dose. Your body, again, reacts to medication that is not meant for the thyroid stimulation that I was supposed to be getting. The hormone, the amount of hormone I was supposed to be having was too high at this time. So it triggered a whirlwind of craziness. Remember, I said it affects everything. So I started to have heart palpitations. I would literally feel my heart beating in my chest. And I was like, this is weird. This is really weird. So I would take my pulse, I'd check it to make sure, was it racing? What was wrong with it? It would just flutter every so often. And I was getting shortness of breath. So what do? I call my doctor again. And they said, now, some doctors won't say this. Okay? This is what my doctor said. I think we need to send you back to the endocrinologist. And I said, okay. Because I wasn't sure hormonally what was going on, if my age was making things different, if it was the fact that I missed, which don't ever miss your medication. And so I go to the endocrinologist. He brings me blood tests, brings me right back down to where I was before all this craziness went on, but not before I get an EKG, a 48-hour Holter monitor. Remember, I have heart disease in my family, and I was close to the age that my dad was when he had his heart attack. So EKG, Holter monitor, echocardiogram. I even had a thyroid scan, and they're like, your thyroid's like this big. Well, no kidding. There's nothing left of it. Everything came back fine. Once the medication started to work, I felt fine. Everything was fine. So since then, I have been on the same exact dose of medication. I'm on a pretty high dose of it because I have no thyroid function, but they even put me on even higher one at that time, which then caused my thyroid to go back to being hyperactive slightly, which shocked my system, I guess, and what made me have these heart palpitations. So since then, like I said, I see the endocrinologist. In the beginning, I saw him every 6 months. Now it's every year because everything's fine. Unless I feel something that's not right, because after how many years, you kind of know not always, you kind of know if something is not quite right. So my suggestion is, hypothyroidism is not something to mess around with. Like I said, it's easier to control than hyperthyroidism, but don't think like, oh, if I do this and they up my medication, I can lose weight and I'll feel better. No. A lot of people, and I will talk about this one tomorrow, is they have issues with losing weight with an underactive thyroid. So that's what I'm going to talk about tomorrow. But number one, always see an endocrinologist. Number two, take your meds as directed. Even if you miss 2 days, that will jack up your system, because it did for me. And know the signs and symptoms of each. Like hypothyroidism, for me, I'm cold. My hair, I don't know how I'm not bald sometimes. The amount of hair that falls out of my head, dry skin, tired. Sometimes I'm moody. I don't think that's my thyroid, but I'm moody. But I see a lot of people are like, well, I have hypothyroidism. This is why this is wrong with me. Some of the symptoms that I read, I'm like, I didn't even know that those were symptoms. So I would never have attributed these things to the hypothyroidism, but I don't use it as a crutch. Like, oh, I can't do that. I have hypothyroid. My thyroid's underactive. I can't do this, or I don't have that. You have to kind of know what your body does and what it is and how it reacts to things. And if it's something that you're just being diagnosed with, if you're not comfortable, you better make sure that you're comfortable with what your doctor is telling you. Because I can tell you what, I just think back to, when I had the radioactive iodine, did the doctor, who was an older doctor, like quite old, like almost retired age doctor, did he recommend that to fast, the radioactive iodine? I don't know. Here I am. This is where I'm at today. So that's where everything is with my thyroid. And I know that a lot of people are like, well, do you take supplements? How do you lose weight if you put weight on? How do you know that everything's okay nowadays? I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, because today I just kind of wanted to touch on what could happen if you're not treating it right. So those symptoms that I was having, even though I was underactive, all those symptoms that I displayed with the heart palpitations and everything, that was symptoms of overactive thyroid. So that's where it was going. Even though I have really no thyroid function, the medication I was on was putting me that way. So it is so important to know. I don't know everything there is to know about it, but it's important to know most of it. Know what you can, educate yourself, make sure your doctor is educating you, and make sure you're seeing an endocrinologist. Don't just go to some fly-by-night doc in the box and say, I think I have a thyroid issue. Mine was hereditary. I said, my mom, she has 20% of hers. That's all she's got left of hers. So these are things that I have to watch for with my kids. So with that being said, that's where I'm at today with my underactive thyroid. I try not to let it get to me. I try not to let it bother me. There are certain things where I'm like, is this my thyroid? I don't know. Is it? I don't know. There's things that I question, like, okay, that's a symptom. Is it something that has to do with it? So you kind of have to know that it also does fluctuate. So tomorrow we're going to talk about, how do you lose weight? How do you, if you've gained weight because you have an underactive thyroid, how do you lose it? What do you do to get rid of that weight? So that I will be talking about tomorrow. So I want to thank you guys all for getting on today, and I look forward to talking to you guys in tomorrow's episode. Have a great day. Bye.